Welcome to this week's episode. I'm Paula Williams.
I'm John Williams.
And we are ABCI, and ABCI's mission is
to help all you folks out there in the aviation world sell more of your products and services.
Absolutely. And today we're doing a book club conversation. And our book is, this is the ebook version, Marketing Made Simple by Donald Miller, which is actually a simplification of Building a Brand Story, which is the StoryBrand.
Simplification, does that mean the Cliff Notes version?
I think so, yeah. I mean, it's a much smaller book. We did get the paper books for some of our clients, and they're like a third the size of this one. So it's a lot less daunting, which is probably a good thing, given how busy everybody is. And also, he's practicing what he preaches, which I think is really cool. And that is that almost anything can be improved by simplifying it. Is that true?
Probably if you preface that phrase with almost, sure.
Yeah, I think that's, especially for a first introduction to any topic, the simpler the better. And this is something that Dan Kennedy and Dave D and Mike Stadola and all of those people used to say in the mastermind groups that we have been part of. That's one of the really common themes, is one of the first things to do if an ad isn't performing or if a piece of marketing isn't performing well is to look at it and say, what can be simplified, and to test a simpler version. And the simpler version almost always does better than the original.
Well, I know when I went to business school and went into marketing class, I had no clue. And, most of the people said, "Oh, this is easy." Mm-hmm. Well, it may have been easy for them. It wasn't easy for me until toward the end when she had simplified a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And I think that's true. It's very, very difficult to simplify things well. Apple's entire business model was basically you take a product that is already on the market and not doing as well as it should be, and you simplify it to the point where busy, normal people get the point, and get how this would work for them. And you don't make them do the work to interpret, this is how I would use this. This is how it fits into my life. This is what I would do with it. And, they took the MP3 player, made it, at the time, 1,000 songs in your pocket, which was like this revolutionary thing, because everybody at the time was using the Walkman from, like Guardians of the Galaxy, where they play a cassette tape in a little box, So this was revolutionary, but it was just a piece of technology that was being used for other things. And they said, hey, let's make this simpler. We'll put 2 buttons on it or a button and a quick dial.
And that works for lots of products.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, that battery I bought, they simplified the instructions. So let me just a quick little story.
Yeah.
I took a MacBook Pro into Apple to get a battery replaced, and they refused because it was too old. I said, oh, okay. Then I took it to a local shop that does that, and they said, nope, too old. And I said, really? So then I did a quick search online. I found a battery for it, ordered it. It was about $60. It got here, and it said, it told me how to do it. And I said, that's all. So I popped the back off that computer. I did what it said. I mean, there's 2 screws and some double-sided tape holding the batteries in. You pop those things out like it says, you put the screws back in, plug it in. It actually takes more time to condition the battery than to replace it.
To replace the battery, right.
And it was all because they simplified it. I mean, I never would have taken it off except for the fact that they said, oh, this is easy.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, I think Apple's probably the best example, and we keep coming back to Apple because it's so obvious and everyone's so familiar with it. They work very, very hard to make complex products simple. And so my desk is literally awash in Apple products. And So I'm a big fan of their marketing. I'm also a big fan of their products because they do the same thing. They think about, and just to really quickly give the framework, if you haven't read the book, which I do recommend, by the way, at least the short version, if not the long version, which actually has a lot more stories in it and a lot more examples and things like that. But thing number one, story. What is the story about this product? What does it do for you? Thing number two, start with empathy, which means put yourself in your customer's shoes. Think from the perspective of your customer, not think from the perspective of an engineer. Most people make the mistake when they're doing marketing of talking about the product or talking about the science that went into the product or whatever. So that's thing number two, start with empathy. Thing number three, simple website. A simple website is a wireframe. He's got a pretty nice outline of what should be on your website and so on. Most websites that sell products or services are way too complicated, is his contention. And so that's item number three. Item number four is speak to the problem or talk about the problem. Don't talk about the product. So, a lot of people talk about, this is what I'm selling. I'm selling a Citation XLS Plus. And these are all of the really cool things about an XLS Plus. But what you want to be talking about is people who need an office, need a mobile office, and they need a bigger cabin than a lot of the business jets have. And they need, a nice refreshment center and entertainment center. They want Wi-Fi. They want all of these things that are in an XLS Plus. But you don't talk about the product. You talk about how it's going to be used. So it's a perfect mobile office. That's the thing about the XLS Plus. That was why it was developed as an improvement over the XLS, right?
And that also applies to the smaller product like the battery I was talking about.
Exactly, right. You want to talk about the problem, not the product, right?
Yep.
And that also goes back to what I was talking about MP3 players. Apple never sold. Apple wasn't the first person to come up with the MP3 player, but they were the first person to say, a regular person can use this, and it has 2 buttons on it, and it's super simple, and you can do this. It's not a highly technological thing with all these bells and whistles and features and buttons and stuff that people don't understand, right?
And to my battery analogy, the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
John, I said that we had a MacBook Pro that I took into Apple to have the battery replaced, and they refused because it's too old.
Right.
I took it to an outside vendor to do that, and they said, no, it's too old. So I said, no. So I did a quick search on the internet, found a battery for $60, had it come, and they overnighted the dang thing for no extra charge, and it came with instructions and the tools it took to replace it. And in a half hour, I had the MacBook Pro apart and the battery out. And in another half hour, I had it all cleaned and the new battery back in, plugged in. And now we're finishing up conditioning the battery, which is taking more of the time than actually replacing the battery. It's only 2 screws and some double-sided tape, for crying out loud.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, that's usually the way it is. They don't want you to do anything that they think that the average person can't do, but yet the average person can, especially if you don't even have to have much mechanical ability. But
no, not at all.
Yeah.
So anyway,
you look up a YouTube video and it'll tell you how to do anything.
Yeah, probably you're right.
Right. So item number 5 is sales funnel. Businesses should have a sales funnel in place that takes potential customers through a series of steps to convert them into paying customers. The sales funnel should also focus on building trust and providing value at each step. So that's a variation of what we do, which is our sales cycle, where you start with prospecting and then you end with referrals and testimonials. So ours is more of a circle than a funnel, but it's the same idea where you've got multiple steps that you go through: prospecting, holding pattern, making sales and so on. You have a coworker.
This is my VP.
She's beautiful.
Yeah, she, whenever I work, she sits in the chair usually next to me. But she
That is
hears
so
voices,
cool.
right? Right?
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. I'll get back over and lay down.
That's cool.
Nah, lay down. No, you're not going to sit on my lap.
We were house sitting for a friend of ours one time, and I was doing office hours and things like that with a German Shepherd that
Oh.
was 120 pounds. She was huge, and so she kept sticking her head right here. No matter what I was doing, she was just like right there. So she was quite popular in meetings and things.
Yeah, this one doesn't bark. Doesn't. It's the quietest dog I've ever had.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Even if someone comes to the door, she'll more likely open it if she could open the door. Just come in and
Come on in.
bouncing all. Yeah, exactly. Like when I teach the CPR classes, I keep her penned up till the end, and then she comes running down. They're expecting this giant dog as she comes down the steps, and there's this little thing pops out. But
Oh, that's cool. I bet she's really popular.
yeah, I go to the grocery store. She just sits in the cart, and all the people that work there know her. So
Nice.
That is cool. Right. So, the sales funnel, I think it's taken us a long time to get ours perfected, and we're always improving one or more of the steps in our funnel. Like just recently we added something to our blue folders, which is a step that we send at the end of our prospecting phase as we're going into our holding pattern. And so, every time we improve something, we can actually follow the numbers. We know from how many people we have had sales meetings with this month. That's what our income is going to be 8 months from now. Pretty accurately, right, John?
Yep. The numbers, they follow the algorithm we put together.
Right. So if I do 10 sales calls this month, then I will end up with 2 new customers 8 months from now, because we have a, what is that, 20% turn rate. And the rest of them will end up being customers at some point in the future, but we don't know when. 6 is script the sales conversation. Businesses should have a clear script for sales conversations that focuses on the customer's problems and how the business can solve them. This will help businesses close more sales and build better relationships with their customers. Mickey went through a class when he was getting into being an entrepreneur, and that was one of the things that a class that he was taking did a really good job of, is focusing on, because your temptation is always to talk about the product and to tell people, how great this solution is and how fantastic this course is, or how fantastic this whatever it is that we're selling is. And that is not necessarily the best way to get started. The best thing to do is to ask the customer, and so this is now our sales outline. Where are you now? What problems are you having? Where do you want to be 90 days from now? And what can we do to help you get there? Because it should be entirely about the customer, not about us. And if we don't have that as an outline, we're going to start talking about the product because that's what we know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think most people are used to being order takers, where people call and ask questions about the product. You answer the questions, and you think that's all you have to do as a salesperson, is just answer people's questions. And that's like the worst thing to do, right?
Yeah. Well, the worst thing to do is nothing. So next step.
I guess that's true. But if you let the customer manage the sales call, most of the time it goes astray because they don't know what questions they should be asking. They only know what problems they're having, and they don't necessarily know how to relate that to what they're up to, right?
Yep.
Okay. So, when they say script, they don't mean, I know you're driven absolutely insane by people on scripts, right?
Yes, I am.
John gets somebody on the phone in a customer service situation or whatever and stuff, and they're talking off of a script, and he'll do best to get them off, right?
Yeah, well, because the scripts regularly don't cover what my problem is. And they're
Yeah.
not thinking, they're just going down the script.
Right.
So you have to be able to think and then modify the script.
Right. But if you started from the outline of starting with, tell me everything about your problem, you almost always will do 1,000 times better than if you're asking the customer, so what questions do you have about our product? Right?
Yeah. And that's the difference between sales and customer support.
Exactly. Right. So, that's what they're talking about a script, is just make sure that you're starting from the customer story. You're starting from where they're coming from, what are their needs? Are they selling an airplane 3 days from now and they really need an appraisal right now? Or is it a situation where they, have a financial transaction, they just want a second opinion? John, I'm sure you run across a lot of different scenarios where
You
it's
never know what you're going to get.
right. But you want to keep it about the customer, and the outline will help you do that. Okay. And then number 7, sustainable systems. And this is, like I said, exactly the same as our holding pattern. If somebody does not buy from us today, chances are, being in the aviation industry, they will buy from us at some time in the future. We have had customers come back to us. We do a consultation, they go with somebody else, whatever happens. They decide they don't have the budget for whatever. We don't hear from them until, sometimes 4 years, 5 years, 6 years later. And then, they remember, or they run across our materials, or they run across something from us on social media and they remember, oh yeah, we talked to those guys. It didn't work out for whatever reason. Let's talk to them again. Or they get an email from us. We have people on our email list that have been on our email list for 10 years. Open an email maybe once every blue moon. And then all of a sudden we get a call because we happened to touch on a topic, or they happened across a situation where they realized they needed us. And that time and opportunity coming together is something we can't control other than being in their way at the time the opportunity happens, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Some people call that being in top of mind.
Right. And, so sustainable systems, that means emails. It doesn't matter how many emails we send. We spend pretty much the same amount of money on our email system every month. And we can send 6,000 emails, which is what we typically do, or we could send 10,000 emails. It doesn't change the cost of our doing business all that much. It costs us the same amount of time to create the email, to get it scheduled, to send it out, whether we're sending that to 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 people. So that's a very sustainable way of doing business. When we send mail, like those blue folders, we only send them to our top 10 most wanted prospects that month. So, that keeps our costs down for our marketing. So that's what I mean by sustainable. We don't send those to all 10,000 people on our list.
No.
Because they cost about $8 a piece. Is that what we figured, John? If we send a book with it, it's like 15.
I don't think it's quite that high. Well, it depends. If you add a book to it, then yes, it goes up.
Right, and postage is $4. So that's the USPS flat rate postage is like the world's coolest thing in the United States. A lot of people don't realize how cheap mail is here compared to everywhere else on the planet. And so I think almost everybody could benefit from doing more postal mail. If their prospects are in the US, but if they're elsewhere, then, that scenario totally changes and it's not sustainable, right?
Yep.
Right. Okay. So that's item 7. So really quickly, we'll just wrap this up and then we'll move on to office hours. But yeah, 7 items are 1, StoryBrand. That's really the Donald Miller trademark, is that all sales should be story based. And I wish Gene had been able to make it because, he's pretty much built his business around his brokerage around that concept. And he's done a really good job with that. And he really went for a couple of years ago, we did StoryBrand as our book club selection. And he really embraced that and took off with it. Number 2, start with empathy. Number 3, simple website. Number 4, speak to the problem. Number 5, sales funnel. Number 6, script the sales conversation. 7, sustainable systems. And that's it. So, I mean, that's the Cliff Notes of the oversimplification of the whole StoryBrand concept. And I think this one's a whole lot more digestible than the last version. So we don't accept
I'd
checks anymore.
probably say the book was a good synopsis of the other book, so probably 9.
9, so highly recommended.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think I would recommend, well, I really, really, really like the longer version because I think it's a lot more compelling to me. This one wasn't convincing, but it was a lot easier to use. The short version was just not, if I had read that one first, I would not be that impressed. But having read the other one first, I think this one is a great synopsis. So it's kind of the busy person's version of something that I was already convinced of. So I'm glad I read them in the order that I did.
Yeah.
Reading the book and then seeing the movie,
Yeah, right.
Great. Well, next month we'll be discussing the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Speakers, which also is a good one. So far, anyway, I've just scratched the surface of that one. This is my first time reading it. A lot of the books in our book club I have read before, but this was actually recommended by someone. So it's my first time with it. I don't know if it's good, bad, or indifferent, but so far so good. So we'll see how that one turns out. All right, so we'll go ahead and sign out for the book club. I'm Paula Williams, ABCI. We help aviation companies sell more of their products and services.
I'm John Williams, and I work for her. I do back office stuff, CFO stuff, cybersecurity, and so forth.
The owner of JAMM Aircraft Appraisals. We're just getting started. That's why we came to Paula and John.
Absolutely.
They came recommended.
Happy to have you, and really looking forward to making that work. So, great.